and welcome to Budgeting Hacks for Financial Nerds and Rebels. My name is Sara Stiles with Rise Consulting. Rise Consulting specializes in corporate retirement plans consulting, taxes for businesses and individuals, and financial planning for businesses and individuals. My role at Rise Consulting is a financial planner. I have a bachelor's degree in corporate financial management, a master's degree in personal financial planning, and I am a certified financial planner. As a 401k plan consultant, I spend a lot of time helping participants prepare to transition into retirement. And when someone wants to know if they are prepared, my first question to them is always, have you created a budget? More often than not, the person has no idea what they spend per month. We cannot know if our savings is enough to live on if we actually don't know how much we need to live on. First and foremost, a successful budget requires you being self-aware. A lot of clients will sit down at my desk and they have no idea how much they're paying to whom and when. They just have bills come in the mailbox, they write a check and turn around and pay it. You need to be strategic about who you pay when and how you're structuring your payments according to when your income comes in. You also have to be realistic with yourself. Finance is also about behavioral decisions and how you as a person are spending money because of your behavior patterns. So you really have to know yourself and try to come up with a plan that you know that you're going to be able to stick to. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about being realistic and what that means. Are you an anti-budgeter? Do you find budgeting to be restrictive or to be painful or cumbersome? Are you a budget nerd where you lose sleep at night if you don't know where every single penny you've spent has gone? Or are you in a relationship where you're one or the other and you and your significant other are not getting along and seeing eye to eye about how the budget should be managed? If you're an anti-budgeter, rigid rules, complicated spreadsheets, and detailed account ledgers are going to be out of the question for you. Just don't even attempt it. If you're a budgeting nerd, we'll want to find ways to reduce your stress about budgeting by finding ways to prevent yourself from overcomplicating the budgeting process. And if you're trying to budget in a house divided, we need to find ways for you to meet in the middle so each partner feels they're getting what they desire and getting the desired outcome out of the budget without feeling put out. So we've covered some of the foundational concepts about self-awareness. Let's get into some of the more foundational, practical foundational concepts about budgeting. First and foremost, timing is everything when juggling your finances. I often have clients tell me, we make more than enough money, so why are we living paycheck to paycheck? And a lot of times when we lift the hood on what they're doing, it's because they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They can avoid doing this by avoiding the feast or famine cycle. And that's basically when you have a lot of bills due at the same time, one part of the month, and then later in the month you don't have very much due, and so you've been on such a strict budget throughout the month, you start spending into oblivion the next time you have decent amount of cash flow. What most people don't realize is that many creditors and utility providers will allow you to choose your own due date. So if you have an avalanche of bills due on one pay period, but a lot of excess cash the next, you should reshuffle the deck on your due dates. Another common mistake I see is people will pay bills just as they come in the mailbox, turn around and pay them, and then they have no idea who has been paid what or if something's still outstanding. So I always say pick 2 days a month or pick your specific days where you're going to pay bills. Put your bills in the tray and don't open them, don't pay them, and don't deal with them until your specified dates. And then that way it's a lot easier for you to track whether a payment is made or not. Another practice I always encourage my clients to do is ditch the checks. Set up online bill pay through your bank and just use cash or your debit card for discretionary expenses. Checks in snail mail get lost and they take forever to clear. Online bill pay makes tax time much easier because usually when you go online and pay things electronically, you can see who exactly you paid when instead of having to look at an image of the check. I absolutely hate paper checks and I try to avoid them at all costs, and I encourage my clients to do that as well. It just helps make the budgeting process much more efficient. add an example to put these concepts into practice. Say I'm an individual who gets paid on the 1st and 15th of every month. I make $5,000 per month, and I have about $3,800 per month in expenses. My first paycheck I get on the 1st of the month, I've got a $1,500 mortgage, $350 for childcare, got $400 for utilities. I have $150 that I can use for food and gas, and about $100 for discretionary. When the 15th rolls around, I've already paid my mortgage and some of my utilities, but I have $1,100 in utilities. I have $350 in childcare, which is the same as the last pay period. This time I'm spending about $450 in food and gas because I didn't have very much the last paycheck to spend on food. I have another $550,000 or $50 in discretionary, which I only had about $100 last paycheck. And then I might allocate about $50 to saving an extra debt. As we look at the first pay period, because I have my mortgage, which is a higher expense, and then I paid $400 in utilities, I did not have much left over for food and gas or discretionary expenses. And then when I look at the 15th paycheck, I had a lot left over and maybe saved about $50 because I was playing catch up. What I wasn't able to buy for myself in discretionary expenses and food and gas on the previous paycheck. So this is what I'm referring to when I talk about the avalanche of bills and kind of restructuring things because we're living feast to famine between pay periods. Okay, so in the same circumstance, if we contact some of our creditors and the utility providers that we have and request alternate due dates, and we restructure how our budget goes, let's kind of even things out a little bit here. So the first paycheck, we have our $1,500 in mortgage payments, but we're going to push some of those $400 utilities that we were paying on the first of the month into the second pay period. So we're not going to pay those. Then we have that $350 in childcare that we were used to. But now we have $350 to spend on food and gas, $250 to spend on discretionary, which was much higher than what we saw in the previous month at $150 for food and gas and $100 for discretionary. And then we have $50 extra left over to allocate towards savings or paying down debt. And the second pay period comes around, we have $1,500 in utilities and debt, which actually happens to be the same amount as what the mortgage was on the first pay period. Still have our $350 in childcare, $350 in food and gas, $250 discretionary, and then another $50 in extra debt. So not only are we leveling out our cash flow to make it more digestible on each pay period where we're not having that feast or famine, but what you're also doing is you're kind of setting an expectation. So each month you know exactly how much you'll have for food and gas and in discretionary spending or in savings and childcare. You're not constantly chasing a moving target, hopefully, if your bills stay generally consistent. That also helps you kind of, in your mind, kind of segment and level out how your payments are made, that you can kind of get accustomed or used to sticking within a certain budget. So let's look at an example for someone who might get paid every other week instead of the 1st and the 15th of the month, because you're going to get paid on 26 pay periods instead of 24. So that means that your cash flow will come in with your paychecks will be smaller but more frequent. So how do you manage cash flow in that type of a situation? You can see here that we have mortgage being one of the larger expenses, and then most of the other expenses, you could kind of even them out or level them out a lot more. And what a lot of people don't realize is that most mortgage companies will allow you to use a program called a mortgage accelerator, where you can pay half of your mortgage every other week. And not only does that allow you to level out your cash flow so that you don't have a big house payment due when your paychecks are more frequent but smaller, but it also allows you to pay one extra mortgage payment per year. So it helps you pay your debt down faster. This is a way I would recommend for a lot of people who get paid every other week. It's a really nice feature to be able to do that with your mortgage. Now, if you get paid every other week and your partner gets paid on the 1st and the 15th, I usually see couples will split it up by the 1st and the 15th because that tends to be where they're getting a larger influx of cash at once, because the partner that gets paid the 1st and the 15th is going to have a larger paycheck. So they kind of center their payments around those two pay dates. But this is a really nice feature if you both get paid every other week. I would highly recommend doing that mortgage accelerator and then just trying to level out the rest of your bills that you have due, that you're paying the same amounts every other week. By now, most of us are acquainted with Dave Ramsey and his envelope system, which I have found works really nicely when you segment your cash or you create buckets of cash where you have a designated spot or you have a designated envelope for each little segment of your budget. In today's world where everything is electronic and it's becoming more and more of an obsolete practice to use cash, that may not be as practical. So one of the tips that I really like to offer clients is to create your own sort of envelope system by having more than one checking account at your bank. So as an example, my husband and I, we have what we call our spending account, and that is where anything that is going to be an automatic debit or an automatic deposit will go into, and that is the account that we have our debit cards attached to, and that's what we use for our discretionary spending like groceries and gas. We have a second checking account that we use as our vacation fund. We have a third checking account that we use as our emergency expense account, and that is where we keep our $1,000 at least for our emergencies, and ideally you'd have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in this one. And then you would have an additional fourth account, which would be your bill pay account. And in that account, what we do is we set up online bill pay each pay period. When we do our bills, we know exactly what is going to be coming out of that account. So say we set it up in that pay period, we have $2,500 in bills. We will transfer over from our paycheck account into the bill pay account, exactly what needs to cover those bills. And we know when that account goes down to a zero balance that all of our bills have been paid for that month. And so that's where we know also to look for any kind of tax receipts. That's where we know when we can look and see where our bill budget's going for. And then on the spending account, we know as we're swiping away, getting gas and getting groceries and having our discretionary spending, that when we check our account every few days, that what's in there is really what we have, because we don't have a bunch of outstanding bills that we've paid or checks that we've written to pay things like the water bill and our mortgage. So I highly recommend opening more than one checking account to allow you to segment how your cash is spent and know that you have one designated account where your spending is done, and then at least another designated account that you're using to pay bills. And then at the very least, maybe that you would have three, where you have a savings account for emergency money and excess cash that is untouchable unless it's an actual emergency. The last foundational budgeting concept I want to cover is where you are allocating your budget, or where you should be allocating your budget. And I do say should loosely because every individual situation is going to be different. So what we're going to cover here is more of what the experts say the average person should be doing, but your situation may look a little bit different. I'm not going to go through this whole list just for the sake of time, but I am going to cover the big three categories that I'm most often asked about. The first one being housing is how much house should I buy? What should my house payment be within my budget? So just looking at this chart as an example, if your household income is about $100,000 a year gross, that means that you would spend about 25% or $25,000 a year on housing expenses. So that equates to a little more than $2,000 per month in mortgage, escrow payments, and utilities. The next category I'm often asked about is transportation, because people are wanting to find out, should I buy or should I lease, and should we have 2 car payments? So the rule of thumb there is that you want to have less than 10% of your household income going towards your transportation needs. So again, if your household income is $100,000 a year gross, you'd want to spend no more than a little over $800 a month on things like car payments, repairs, maintenance, and gas expenses. And then the last category I'm often asked about, it's usually why people are creating a budget. If not saving for retirement, they're trying to pay off debt. So for a couple or for an individual with income of $100,000 a year household gross, we would be looking at about $8,000 a year that would be spent on debt payments. So that equates to about $600 to $700 per month. And that would include things like credit cards, home equity loans, installment loans, student loans. And as I mentioned before, when I say these are the percentages you should be spending your budget on, or how you should allocate your budget, I say that loosely because every situation is different, and your desires and the standard of living that you want is going to be different than the next person. But the bottom line here, what's most important to focus on is, again, being self-aware and creating some type of a limitation that makes the most sense for yourself, so that you have some kind of a guardrail to allow you to stay within a budget that can help you get to where you want to be financially. So I recently came across this meme through my Facebook feed, and I had to snip it out as I was putting this presentation together because it made me laugh. But it says, "We came in here for vinegar and light bulbs." If you look at the bottom of this Walmart receipt, they spent $171 and bought about 50 items, and I don't even see light bulbs and vinegar on that list. So if we had to speculate of what kind of personality this person had, they're probably a budget rebel or an anti-budgeter versus someone who's a budget nerd. But the reality is, we live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with solicitation from people who want us to spend our money. And we live in a world of immediate gratification, so it can feel like such a daunting. The good news is we also live in a world of advanced technology, and the beauty of that is that we now have the power to hold our entire lives in the palm of our hand, and it seems like there is an app for everyone and everything. So what I'm going to go over are some different apps that may cater to whatever different personality type that you may be. So if you're a budget rebel, we're going to look for an app that keeps the process simple, and we have as much on autopilot as possible, and it's got to be something that can keep your attention. If you're a budgeting nerd, we want something that's going to be pretty comprehensive, and it's going to let you obsess over every detail, and it's going to do all the thinking for you. And if you're a house divided, we're going to find apps that allow you to come together with your partner where you both can stay on track and be on the same page in each of your own ways. So the first app that I'll touch on is called Wally, and it's a very basic budgeting app. It is free, and it's pretty simple and easy to use, but it basically is built around the envelope system, if you will, electronically, as the name implies, envelopes. So both of those two apps are kind of designed to create somewhat of an envelope system to help you segment your money and categorize it and how you spend it. One of the more popular apps that I see a lot of people love, and they have somewhat of a cult following, is called You Need a Budget, or they affectionately call it YNAB. But this budget is based on 4 key principles, and it's highly centered around paying off debt. And this is a very comprehensive app, and because it has such a cult following and hardcore community of You Need a Budget YNABers, it's great for people with a type A personality who might be a budgeting nerd. Good Budget was an app that is rated highly for couples because it allows you to use the envelope system across both Android and iPhone. So it has a great syncing feature which allows you to sync up your budget with your partner, and you guys can simultaneously use the app and follow your budget. Pocket Guard was another one that is pretty popular, and it's popular because it actually alerts you when you're overspending. So it allows you to go in and set specific amounts that you want to stay within for each category of your budget. And if you are not meeting your goals because you're overspending or you're not saving what you are supposed to be saving, it will kind of give you a little warning, or it will alert you that you're falling off track. Prism is a really neat app because it's one of few apps that actually allow you to pay your bills through the app. So most of these will allow you to create the budget and track it. You can track the comings and goings of your money. This one actually allows you to make payments through the app, which makes it somewhat unique. And then the most highly rated app overall for budgeting is Mint. And Mint is created by the people who created QuickBooks, but it is the most robust tool and the best overall tool to track spending, to create goals. It aggregates all of your assets in one place so you can have a placemat where all your assets are, and you can kind of look at your entire financial dashboard. The drawback to Mint.com is if you have the free subscription version of it, then you are getting bombarded with ads. And you can bet the way that Mint makes money is because they sell your information to advertisers. So an alternate opportunity or an alternate option for you would be to use eMoney, which is something that you have access to as a customer or a plan participant under Rise Consulting. eMoney is one of the leaders in the financial planning technology space, and it's used by many financial professionals like myself. I use this tool to assist my clients with things like estate planning, tax planning, investment management, planning for college, or doing retirement income projections for clients who are getting close to retirement. It also has that aggregation feature where you can hook up your bank accounts and credit cards, and you can have a very easy way to track your spending and to categorize it. Comes in very handy at the end of the year when it's tax planning season. If you have your tax deductible expenses coded accordingly, you can print a year's worth of expenses with just the click of a button. So this is something that if you are a client of mine, either in a 401k plan that I'm managing, or if I'm doing individual planning for you, you have access to this tool for free. If you would like to receive a login for this, just email me at sara.stiles@risebizconsultants.com, and I would just need your first and last name, personal email address, date of birth, and then we can get you set up with this technology. Creating your budget is the first step, but what can you do if you determine that you need to reduce your monthly overhead? So it's time to talk cutting expenses. I have to admit, I did not grow up with a lot of money. Our home, we did not have a lot of money in my home, and my mom definitely did some bathroom barbershop work, not much different than this, on my brother, so I had to include this picture in here. But there are ways to cut expenses without drastically cutting corners. Two common themes I see when people live paycheck to paycheck are: one, overpaying and not staying on top of cost control, and two, impulse buying. So when you're trying to stick to a budget and when you're trying to stay within parameters of a budget, it's really important that you look for opportunities to reduce your current overhead on a continual basis. So negotiate lower cell phone rates. Some people even will get a prepaid phone where they can control the cost of their bill, and then once their phone is all paid up, then they know that that's what I have for the month. Cut the cable cord. If you can, refi credit cards to a 0% interest rate. Refinance your mortgage. Interest rates continue to drop, so maybe it's a good time to do that. Consolidate revolving debt into fixed payments. A lot of us will go out and sign up for subscriptions because we get a freebie out of it, or we get some kind of a discount. So cancel useless subscriptions, useless apps that you're paying for that you don't need. Another thing is to shop smart and plan ahead before you make a purchase to make sure that you're getting the best deal. Before I go get an oil change, before I make any kind of purchase that's going to cost me $50, $100 or more, I'm always going to Groupon, or I'm Googling a coupon code for wherever I'm going, because consistently I'm saving between 20 to 25% on a lot of the things that I'm buying every day. Clothes, for instance, I do a lot of shopping online for clothes. Before I click submit in my cart at any clothing retailer, I'm always looking for a coupon on Retail Me Not, because inevitably they will have a code that will save me a little bit of money. So just take your time and shop smart. And then the last thing is to stay out of your own way. Pause and reflect on your goals, and ask yourself if the purchase that you're about to make is going to derail you from what you ultimately want. And ask yourself if that purchase is going to be worth it. If you know it will be, then great, get it and enjoy the purchase. But if you're not sure, sleep on it, wait till the next day, give it a day or two to mull it over, and then you'll kind of know within a few days of whether or not that is really worth it to you to make the purchase. So those are the ways where I kind of say if you are just staying on top of what you're doing on a consistent basis and making sure that you continue to get the best pricing for ongoing services that you're receiving, when you're about to go make a purchase, just take the time to do a little research and make sure you're shopping smart, and then just don't put yourself into situations where you know it could set you up for failure. So what do you do when you've cut all the corners you can, you're using the coupons, you're sticking within the budget, but you still need a little boost to help you reach your financial goal or get that debt paid off? It's time to talk about side hustling. So believe it or not, there really are apps that really will pay you. And there's a number of ways that you can get paid by using apps. The first and one of the most common ways people like to get paid on apps is to take paid surveys. So basically, large brands will hire research and development firms to help them understand how best to market to their target consumer. So apps give these consulting firms cheap and easy access to that target demographic that they're trying to learn about. The second way is to play games. So you actually can get paid to go on apps and play games. And similar to paid surveys, software developers will pay users to play their games to gauge the probability of success of that game and to work out any of the technical glitches that it might have. The third way to use apps to get paid is by doing freelance work. So there are apps that allow you to advertise your skills, whatever they may be, for free. If you have any kind of special skill, the internet is your friend because you have access to basically the entire world to be able to tell them what you're good at and try to obtain business for yourself. And then the last way, and I think it's one that we all know of, and it is one of the most obvious ways, is to use your car. So you will have apps like Uber and Postmates and Instacart where you can use your car as a delivery vehicle, or you may even be able to find an app that allows you to use your car to advertise it on it like a billboard. So there's a number of ways that you can find apps that will actually pay you just to use the app. And you can get paid and make money from the comfort of your couch in your sweatpants. So here are some of the top apps that people are using to get paid. Fiverr is a great app for freelancers where it allows you to go on and promote your skills. And then you have the ability to bid on jobs. So if I'm a user and I'm a consumer, I want to go on to Fiverr and maybe find someone to design a logo for me, for instance. I can request bids from multiple freelancers on that site. I can pick the bid that sounds the best for me. And then each freelancer on there is reviewed with every job they complete. So the higher your ratings go and your rankings go by multiple users, the higher you go to the top of the list when people are searching for something that you are skilled at. So that's a really neat one. Survey Junkie, Swagbucks, and Inbox Dollars, those are all survey apps. Swagbucks is a little bit more robust than just going on there and getting paid to take surveys because it also has that paid games feature and gives you discounts for online shopping. So if you're looking to maybe do some survey apps, Swagbucks might be a good one for you that's more all-encompassing. Skills is a gaming app, and the way you get paid on Skills is to compete against and to win against other users. So when you go on there, if you want to get paid to play games with Skills, you actually have to have skills and be able to beat other users. Avada is a coupon and rebate app, so that one is going to provide you with coupon codes for multiple retailers, which is going to theoretically drive you to go use those retailer sites and spend more money than you would have without that coupon code. Easy Shift is a secret shopper app that allows you to basically pull up a map of the area where you are, and it will give you locations where there's jobs nearby you. And what a job is basically going into a store and taking pictures of different products and displays to give whoever is hiring Easy Shift some intel on maybe what the competition is doing, or maybe just to check up on their own retail stores. And then Receipt Hog actually gives you points, and you can earn rewards. and gift cards by just sending in pictures of your receipts. So no special criteria, just every receipt that you have, you could send it into Receipt Hog and it may qualify to get you reward points, cash, and gift cards. So these are some of the top ones that are highly rated that consumers are using to make a little extra cash from the couch. Or I suppose in the store if you're using Easy Shift. So that's the last of what I'll be covering in this presentation today, but I just want to go over 4 key points before I leave you. First and foremost, just remember to be self-aware and to recognize what behavioral tendencies that you have so that you can create a plan that someone like yourself can adhere to. Take inventory of your income and expenses and be self-aware of how you're spending your money. Develop a plan that makes sense with your cash flow and create a routine that is consistent and that you can consistently stick to. And find ways to automate the process for yourself. And then, of course, leverage technology. This is a great way for you to help keep yourself organized, and it may even be a way for you to reduce expenses for yourself or to get a little extra spare change for yourself. I welcome the opportunity to visit with you if you have additional questions about budgeting, managing your finances, or really any other financial planning question. You can reach me by email or by phone. Thank you so much.